We recently had a presentation about the ALICE population, that United Way, the asset limited, income constrained, and employed population. They're spending the majority of their income in housing. And the second piece is childcare. So you're right on, I know you always are, following that. And how do we do that? And I think you had a good point, because in talking at the federal level, I've recently been following and involved with the Abundance Network. Jen Palka, reading her book, and their motto is YIMBY for everything, right? So it's not partisan, like you said, right? I've had pushback trying to build a school in my district, right? It really, how do we ensure that especially those of us who had the opportunity to grow up here, build a family, build a life here, when it was a county that was cheap to live in and had jobs, right? Now we have the jobs, but we can't afford to live here. And whether we have seniors trying to figure out how to retire and stay here safely in place across all the incomes, to how we have a workforce that is able to live here and not have to drive in from Frederick or West Virginia, or really eventually saying, hey, it's not worth it, right? It's too much of a drive. So to me, all of these come together. I started my career in microfinance, and they did all of it: housing, education, health, and the workforce. And so how do we do that as we see, right? We're pricing out our economic ability to continue to be viable. So I just want to thank you over and over for your leadership in that at the state level.
Thank me when the check comes.
Well, but even just having these conversations, and then the other point you made is we need all kinds of housing. I had 4 applications at our last meeting, and one of them was innovative, and also had a lot of pushback, but also a lot of support, which was within one of our existing communities, the Virginian, that was a nonprofit for many years, since the 70s, was bought right before the pandemic, because they were having trouble by a private company that said, there's a missing kind of housing. We'd love to build cottages here. We know we have seniors who are trying to stay here, can no longer, live in their large homes, and want to sell them and do something that's maybe not in multifamily, but close to the services and maybe transitional. The funny thing is, I told my mom, it's the first time she said, oh, that sounds interesting. So
look up the Falls Church cottages. And
those are very expensive.
How hard it was to get those done.
Yes, but those are selling for over $1 million. These are going to be rentals, right? So we need all of it. And I know these have existed in other counties. So I just, again, I want to thank you. It does take a lot of political will, like you and the chairman have said, here at the local level. That's where that rubber meets the road. And where we have to, a big piece is the financing, right? But the other pieces, whether they are legislative, whether they are just about building and reaching out to more of our community to empower them to speak out. I know this was a really easy process for you. But you lived to tell the tale, and I just want to thank all of you who helped lead that and will help really bring those solutions in the future.
Thank you, Supervisor Polachek. That was so great. Thank you for that beautiful story. So I'd like to make time to let everybody else just introduce themselves around the table here, just to save time. So Judith, thank you for being here and introducing yourself.
Thanks, Jill. Judith Cabelli, Wesley Housing, Vice President of Real Estate.
So I'm Camilla McAfee. I'm the President and CEO of Wesley Housing.
Saif Rahman, I've got many hats. Today I'm Dorothy Dress Humming Center, but I'm also the president of MVBIA.
And a Providence resident.
Providence resident. And also the founder of the Move Business Chamber.
I'm Julie Wilson-Black. I'm the pastor of Fairlington Presbyterian Church on the west end of Alexandria. We partnered with Wesley Housing to build 81 units at the Waypoint at Fairlington.
Philip Elliott, I'm the board chair with the Colmar Clinic.
Can you give me 30 seconds quickly on Colmar? Because I was at the Virginia Healthcare Foundation 30 years ago, and I've been very active. Tell me 30 seconds.
Can I defer to our executive?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Lynette Sapin-Watkins. I'm the executive director of Colmar Clinic, and Colmar Clinic is an organization that is advancing healthcare in Fairfax County for individuals who are uninsured, do not have access to health insurance. And we provide all of our services, primary care, specialty care, counseling, because mental health, as we've already discussed, is so important. all at no cost to our patients. There are about 900 patients who call Colmore Clinic their medical home, and we partner with Supervisor Jimenez and with Fairfax County to be able to provide these services. And so we're really honored to be a part of not only this panel, but a part of Kindred Crossing.
That's great, thank you.
Hi, Anna Shapiro, Deputy Director of the Department of Housing, over all of our developments related to supply side functions of the house.
Tom Fleetwood, Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development in Fairfax County.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Really appreciate your wisdom and expertise in sharing that in our discussion. And I think to help frame our discussion, we have a short video with some familiar faces that we're gonna show, produced by the Commonwealth Housing Coalition about faith-based affordable housing development and some of the challenges and ways Virginia can make this easier.
The video.
Are you in it?
Virginia is facing a housing crisis. We simply need more homes. Faith institutions across Virginia own twice as much land as the entire city of Richmond. Some have already used their land to address the crisis.
I'm Julie Wilson Black, pastor of Fairleigton Presbyterian Church here in Alexandria, Virginia.
My name is Joe Belser. I'm the priest at the Episcopal Church of the Resurrection in the west end of the city of Alexandria.
We built 81 homes on our former parking lot in order to provide housing for our neighbors.
My church built 113 homes on a portion of our 2-acre property, and it ended up giving our congregation new life.
But it's harder than it should be, and many more face overwhelming challenges just to get started.
I'm Steve Moore, the pastor of First Christian Church of Falls Church.
I'm Reverend Alice Rose Toole. I'm the pastor of Clarendon Presbyterian Church in Arlington.
I'm Reverend Dr. Sessions, pastor of the historic Little Union Baptist Church.
We want to build 95 affordable homes for seniors right here in Fairfax County.
Our congregation dreams of building 90 affordable apartment homes for seniors right here where I'm standing.
We have about between 45 and 50 acres. We're looking to build affordable housing right here where I stand.
But it's not that easy. They face overwhelming challenges just to get started.
We have spent 6 years, over $100,000, and yet the ground remains unbroken.
We've already invested 3 years and over $300,000, and the project hasn't even started.
One big obstacle?
Zoning.
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 Zoning is complex, expensive, and time-consuming.
It cost us approximately $100,000 in a whole year of effort just for the rezoning. Shouldn't be this hard.
I'm Safe Man, managing partner of JR Real Estate. We're a developer in Prince William, Fairfax, and Ottawa counties, and I'm a voice strategy team member. Also the current president of the Northern Virginia Building Industry Association. You've got a crazy shortage right now. You've got a projected shortage that's projecting out through 2038. So something's got to give. Let's shorten the time frame of approvals, get that housing started to be construction, so that the time that we're waiting is the construction time and not the approval time.
This session, congregations and housing nonprofits will ask the General Assembly to remove costly barriers.
We need state leadership.
We need homes.
The status quo is not working.
Let's let faith institutions and nonprofits build the housing we need through a fair and predictable process. Say yes to more homes.
Yes, in God's backyard.
Yes, in God's backyard.
Yes, in God's backyard.
Say yes to more homes. Say yes in God's backyard.
So is the I saw the bills up, is it going through?
No, unfortunately, so I was down there on Wednesday with the HBAV and we were supporting it, but it got killed. And one of the reasons is that I know that the last sort of issue that counties feel like they own is land use in terms of power, and they don't want the state taking that over. Understandable. So we've got to find a way to get counties comfortable with allowing zoning. So we're taking a carrot approach, which is still alive. I'm sorry, Jill, I don't.
No, you're good. You're good.
So one of the things we proposed last year, Senator, was something I talked to you about several years ago with Voice. We created a state-level infrastructure fund to put a carrot out there for jurisdictions. The governor signed it last year. We were trying to fund it this year. It was on track for funding of about $150 million, but that all ground to a halt when those executive orders came out. So right now that's in danger. The idea being that we would put a carrot out in front of jurisdictions that, hey, you have infrastructure costs, let's get your entitlements time frame down, and we will release these infrastructure costs from a state level. It'll be a competitive process on the state level where we could release infrastructure costs as a carrot approach rather than a mandate approach.
Great idea. Great idea.
No, that's great, thank you. I want to give Camilla a chance, as CEO of Wesley, to go ahead and just kind of share, because they really are the brains and hard work and effort behind all this. So Camilla, I want to congratulate you on your recent statewide expansion. Wesley Housing is really moving beyond being a DMV partner, but to the rest of the state of Virginia. And really thank you for having us all here.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, affordable housing is a team sport, as we're
Yes, it
evidenced
is.
by everyone around the table, so really appreciate. It really is an honor to be here with all of the electeds and partners at the table, most notably my resilient and supportive partners at the church and at the Colmore Clinic. It has been a long road for us, but one that now is yielding some fruit, right? We're in a position to be able to close and start construction on this project by fourth quarter this year, much in part due to the almost $8 million it was, right?
If I could write governor, I could write that executive.
Let me add a word for your agenda. Inshallah.
Absolutely. But really that is a linchpin to help us get over the final hump, to add to the almost $9 million that the county's putting in, as well as the supportive operating subsidies that come with both the HUD 202 as well as the county's project-based rental assistance. So really 90% of our residents will have a subsidy contract that ensures that they don't pay more than 30% of their income for housing. So, which is really key, because even those that are living in some of our affordable housing communities supported by the low-income housing tax credit, where the rents are restricted at a height of 60% or 50% or 40%, a lot of those folks really earn at 30, 40, and 50%.
And if you got the subsidy, what is the funding source for the subsidy?
So it's the HUD crack. So the HUD 202 comes with a capital advance as well as a project-based rental assistance.
There is an ongoing revenue stream on that.
Correct, absolutely. And that crack contract not only provides that operating subsidy for the residents for us to operate the building, but it also allows us to help support up to 40% of our resident services costs with the crack contract. So not a lot of sources allow you to really underwrite resident services, but most of our affordable housing advocates and participants in this community see the value in it, right? It's one of those kind of unfunded mandates, so to speak, and really one that's critical and necessary for our older adults because they really do need that support to be able to keep them housed and be able to age in dignity and with the supports, with the wraparound services that they need. So, you know, Wesley has always been not just about building the housing, we're about building the community, you know, that is really key. So we'll have a dedicated resident services coordinator that's going to be able to provide linkage with food assistance programs and utility assistance and accessibility services. The HUD 202, as well as some of the design requirements and incentives from both the county and the state, also support a lot of design enhancements related to accessibility, so that we have full universal design across every single unit. You know, the building code mandate for accessible units is very low. We usually exceed that, so we're going to have 10% of our units here fully accessible, and then everything else will be fully adaptable, right? It'll be universally designed so that folks are able to age in place if and when they have a need for additional accessibility, you know, physical or hearing or visual impairment. Let's see, so, you know, I also just wanted to mention that it's not our first go-around with the HUD 202 program. We recently completed a project, and it's not our first go-around with our faith partners, right? So Pastor Julie, and you saw her in front of our 81 residences in Alexandria, turned some asphalt, some, you know, unutilized land into homes. And we also built, in partnership with the Episcopalian Church out in Winchester, 63 units of HUD 202 supported communities. And as Jill had mentioned, we're now expanding across the rest of the state in partnership with an organization called the Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corporation. They were founded around the same time out of the Methodist tradition as Wesley Housing in the 70s. And we'll be bringing on their over 1,000 directly controlled and another 1,900 joint venture units into our portfolio, which also includes another 300 plus 202 supported units across 10 communities as far away as Farmville and Stanton and elsewhere. And so now that we have Kindred Crossing moving forward, we're really, we've been talking about the great need for more resources and more innovative thought and being able to expedite the process. Yes, Pastor Steve, please. It's been a long road for this one in particular, but we're really excited to bring it to fruition, and so I'm excited to be around the table with you all to come up with those innovative solutions. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to just open it up to, especially to those of you who really hadn't had a chance to speak yet, to kind of frame your issues. I know Reverend Julie Wilson-Black has experience having gone through this, so I don't know, Julie, if you want to share with the Senator what that experience was like for your congregation and what you are doing now to continue to support the residents of Waypoint and your own faith community. So,
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, Senator Warner, our congregation was founded in 1947, the same time during that kind of post-war church boom era that a lot of churches around here were started. And like many other churches in the Commonwealth, our church has, our building has gotten older and needed more maintenance while our congregation size has shrunk. And we provide a lot of services and a lot of value to our community. And we thought, God has a purpose for us in this neighborhood. But in order for us to sustain our ministry to the community over time, we needed another source of income than just the giving of our members. And so that was how the partnership with Wesley Housing was born, and our...
So you actually thought of it as an income source?
Exactly, right. Yes, we, through the partnership with Wesley Housing, we were able to walk away from the deal with $3.5 million. And so $2 million of that dollars we poured back into the building to make it a fully accessible building, adding an elevator, making all of our entrances accessible. And then the other money will sustain the maintenance of the building over time. And so for us, it's really been a win-win. We have really valued the relationships that we have gotten to build with our new neighbors. And a few months after the building opened in 2022, one of the residents died unexpectedly, and I said to the staff, at the Waypoint, look, if his family needs a place to have a funeral, we're right next door. And sure enough, they took us up on that offer and, came in, and we were able to host the funeral for them. So it's really been a wonderful partnership for us, and it's given new life to our congregation. I think that our concern is that so many of my colleagues have come to us and said, tell me how to do this. We would love to do this. We have people who want to be in mission to our community, and we have this aging facility that we can't maintain. And we're looking at closing in the next 10 years. And unfortunately, I've had to say to a lot of them, it may not be feasible for you because the rezoning process is so cumbersome, and your neighbors will be opposed. I mean, that's a guarantee. And so as long as...
How bad was your fight with your neighbors?
Well, thankfully, we were in, I think, a good position that we had the support of the city of Alexandria. The city was very supportive of our project, and so they were willing to, make the case for our project. And as Judith knows, we had several town halls, community forums, So we checked all the boxes in terms of community engagement. We heard from our neighbors. We incorporated what we heard from them into the design of the building. It looks a lot different now than it started because of that community input. So it really was a valuable process. But if the city had not been so supportive, it would easily have died.
And how long
And it was 18 months, when a market rate development is probably 9 to 12 months, right? So, and it was a lot more, adverse to change any plan.
And it was like this whole question of what language you use, I know nobody wants low income.
Right.
So
Workforce housing.
Which is there a frame, or
Yes.
is there a way to do a picture first so it's not, people think the kind of classical school? No.
This is seniors only here, and
We talked a lot about Do you want your child's teacher to live in the same neighborhood where you do? Do you want the teacher's aides, you know, to be able to live here? Do you want your police officers to be able to live in your community? So, you know, that was the kind of, just sort of painting the picture for who these neighbors would be.
And the city actually brought those slides and shared that information directly with the community. They're the ones who brought who the community would serve in our community meetings, which I think was very helpful in painting that picture there. They were in partnership with us for that part.
But in our recent conversations, Steve and I both have been working with Voice, Virginians Organized for Interfaith Community Engagement.
I've been working with Voice since they began. I've been skewered more times.
But you're responsive.
When we met in preparation to go to Richmond for Lobby Day a couple weeks ago to advocate for this, we met with the city of Alexandria's mayor and vice mayor, and both of them said state leadership on this issue would really help us, because it would take this from being a political process into one where, you know, hey, the state has said that we need to streamline the process for congregations that want to do this. So it would help. I mean, we think it would help localities a great deal.
I mean, in our, here at this congregation, it was over 10 years ago that the county first approached us with an idea about perhaps a temporary homeless shelter on the property, which did not come to fruition, but it planted the seed for us to think about, okay, how can we faithfully use stewardship the land so that we could serve our community. And thankfully, we're a thriving congregation, so it's more, ours is a ministry opportunity. We will get funds to make our building accessible, but the time that it has taken to get to this point, I mean, the need for affordable housing has just expanded dramatically. I've learned more about stormwater and parking. They don't teach that in seminary. And that, you know, things like the redback salamander will not survive, which is a NIMBY argument. But the other piece of vision for our congregation, similar to Pastor Julie's, is that we would like to become a cultural hub in the Mason district, because there are a lot of, in the Comer community and Bailey Crossroads and Seven Corners, there are a lot of cultures that live in this area that do not have a place to express their art, their drama, their music. And how can we utilize the gifts of the residents, our new neighbors, to help facilitate and make this community thrive even more than it already is. So it's been a great partnership. It's just the time that it takes for faith communities to do this. And we will be the first, I believe, the first faith community in Fairfax County.
The first. No.
No?
Chesterfield County.
Chesterfield.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was 3, right? It was synagogue and 2 churches.
Right.
And I didn't live through it, but I know even their own congregants, they had to get the buy-in from. So, you know, clearly, it's not just even the neighbors. I don't know what you had to do with your own congregants.
Our
You have great
congregation
ones. So.
bought into the vision pretty quickly. And I will say that Senator, the partnerships with Dar Hujra Islamic Center, the partnerships are essential to this project, as you would know.
I got some I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. It's not spoken yet, but I've got a bunch of questions. So.
Yeah. Who do you want to hear from Colmore? Because I think you're an important.
I would love to be able to comment and give a couple.
I'm very familiar with the free clinic movement, and I was founder of Virginia Healthcare Foundation.
Which we are funded by them. Yeah, but I do want to say also, Senator, we thank you so much for you and Senator Kane. Included Colmore Clinic in the congressionally directed spending request, and so
we used to call earmarks.
Yes, formerly called earmarks.
Which now held up as well. You got the ones last year, right?
No, ours is for this year. Yeah, but you all included it, and it is for the build out of this project within Kendrick Crossing that we asked for the funds. So we are still hopeful, and I hope you are still hopeful also. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it's so many things that have been said around the table are really important. When we talk about our neighbors in Fairfax County, you know, our patients are individuals who don't have access to healthcare otherwise. And you talk about housing being a big part of their income and childcare being a big part of their income. Where does that leave healthcare? For many of our patients, without Colmore Clinic, it would leave them without healthcare. So we are here to be able to provide for them services that help them thrive. Once you have your health, you can go out and take care of your families. You can, you know, work. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help these individuals stay healthy, take care of their families, become a part of the community. And with Kindred Crossing, it represents an opportunity for Wesley Housing to give back to the community, but it also represents an opportunity for the Colmore Clinic community to grow, because many of our volunteers, and we are about 75% volunteer run, we have very small staff. In fact, we've got some volunteers here in the room. And so we're very pleased for them, but we'll have 95 senior adults who potentially can become volunteers of Colmore Clinic too, because most of our volunteers are retirees, so we're excited about that as well. There's so many levels that this is a great project.
Thank you, Lynette. I want to make sure we recognize Tom and Anna, who are here from Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and what a powerful engine that has been for affordable housing development in the county, and give you an opportunity as a HUD moving to work agency. And I always say they're creme de la creme, and they're able to do so much, and really thank you for your tireless efforts, but also give you the opportunity to share what you're busy working on.
Thank you, Jill, and Senator Warner, thank you for your leadership as well. We are deeply fortunate here in Fairfax County to have both an incredible level of local leadership, as you've seen demonstrated here, but also a tremendous partnership with the federal government. And this project Kindred Crossing is a great example of that. So our Board of Supervisors has invested $9.7 million in this project alone.
About 10.
Hard year, be careful.
So Marcus Simon said always round up.
So I think I heard about 10. But coupled with that, in this project is a really unique feature that we have, and Jill alluded to it, is the moving to work status of our Redevelopment and Housing Authority. We are one of the original 39 HUD moving to work agencies, the first one in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the flexibility that gives us to be able to deploy federal resources, particularly in the form of project-based vouchers, really helps make these kinds of projects work. And being able to knit those resources together and have the flexibility to use those federal resources in combination with our local dollars really it's how we're able to make so much progress here in Fairfax County. And the continued support at the federal level, of course, for the tax credit program, but also for the moving to work flexibilities in CDBG and home as well, are incredibly important to us, and our ability to leverage our resources to be able to make these projects happen.
I'm going to zoom out a little bit, talk a little about our what we use to make the projects happen and some of our challenges. As you know, our Board of Supervisors has invested very heavily in affordable housing development. Just this past year, they put forth $42 million in blueprint financing, 1.6 in Housing Trust Fund, which is basically a wind-up toy of our zoning process that just yields funds through our zoning that we can reinvest into affordable housing, as well as our partnership with the state to fund $5.5 million that we can offer the development community for permanent supportive housing development. We often use those, we leverage those pretty highly, so we leverage them. I think maybe the worst deal is 4 to 1, but often it's 10 to 1 dollars that we bring in from other sources. Great example is this project, which leverages state sources, you could just see there's like 10 rows on their pro forma, the sources that it takes. Each one of them takes a lot of effort to commit and takes a lot of sort of leveraging each other, right? So everything is kind of dependent on the next step, and our board has been very I think, very forward-thinking in being that first in on a lot of projects. Our big challenge is the tax credit program. Obviously, you know it's incredibly competitive here in Virginia. And we've seen projects that lose out on the 4% tax credits to be able to leverage the most amount of equity just because of the number of applications. And they're all such good projects, and we're competing within our county. Projects are competing within our county and within the state. So expanding that program is really imperative, and it would be very helpful, I think, to get more and more supply in there. And there's also kind of a fear that with additional gains to a lot of the banks and other institutions that invest in the tax credit program through potential tax benefits, the tax credit program won't look as exciting, and our credit pricing could be reduced. And that's a huge challenge to these affordable housing projects who have now come from about the 90s, in terms of the credit pricing down to the 80s. If we get a lot lower, we're gonna have to leverage a lot more local funds and state funds to be able to supplement that. So we're really looking at that sort of forward-looking. We're looking at new tools, ways to leverage our bonds differently, ways to leverage other federal programs such as the risk share program through FHA, and finding ways to maybe even circumvent the tax credit program where it doesn't work. So I think we're really trying to think outside the box, trying to see what other partners are doing, looking at best practices around the country and finding ways to do both, really. We know we can't have only one tool to do all this.
Well, I would love to have, I've got new folks who are doing housing for me, and, anything that's kind of new and fresh, or, I think this is, partially this is just probably due to my ignorance, but it has felt for me a long time that the kind of really bold new ideas in housing have not been coming around. That's just, and I could be wrong, but that's the feeling kind of the policy community in DC. So if you've got new wings, I'm just intrigued as well. The faith-based piece, the pushback in Richmond. Can wait, because it's like I'm trying to. I think I've got some call about trying to make sure we get somebody. But the pushback in Richmond more came because of local.
Yeah, it was VACO, and obviously local jurisdictions where anytime you bring up anything that sort of creates a mandate for zoning, Senator, the local jurisdictions are very sort of antsy about that.
But is there a piece, though, I would think, does the faith-based community not allow a broader political, alliance or something?
So there was. So actually, this was a pretty broad alliance, because you had the Home Builder Association of Virginia supporting this. We had Voice, we had Navaja, we had a lot of housing advocates supporting it.
But kind of more rural churches, have we got them involved?
We're still working on some of the more downstate actors on this. I think the way that we're going to have to do this is to create a local model that works, and then show how that
and
might
is
be.
Virginia ahead on this around faith-based, or is there someplace else?
No.
California, Massachusetts,
Even Montgomery
Maryland.
County, I believe.
Yeah.
No, can't you say Alabama or Mississippi?
That's
Here's the thing, here's what I'm asking about.